Well, I'm so glad you were able to join us today. I'm your host, Cindy Watson, and today I'm really happy to be introducing you to Tiffany Cagwin, and we're going to be talking about negotiating wellness as a busy leader. So welcome, Tiffany. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
And for those of you who don't know Tiffany, she's an experienced executive leader and a transformational coach. She's got a passion for helping others thrive by getting them to, getting them and guiding them, I guess, to shift their mindset, take action towards their goals, and embrace self-care, which we do not do enough of. And she's a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I could certainly use that. I don't know about you. She's a board certified holistic health practitioner and a yoga teacher. So let's dive in, Tiffany. You were a corporate head of people, which I kind of chuckled at that, having been a labor lawyer for 30 years. And that was in a previous life, I guess we'd say. So what caused the shift to your current work?
Yes, well, previous life for both of us, right? I used to work with a lot of labor attorneys, and that was a big part of my world. I mean, the shift from corporate till now had to do with another healing journey of mine, but I'll sort of back up because I think there's a little more context, which is that I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was 17.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with Crohn's, came on pretty suddenly, and was a pretty massive life shift for me at the time. I was getting ready to go to college and all of a sudden found myself really ill. And at the time, so this was, I'm going to date myself, but it was in the 90s. And they're really, at that point, it's not like you could Google things or easily find other information, right? And so I was just sort of handed this diagnosis and told, well, this is just your life now, and you're going to be on these really intense medications. We will likely have to cycle through them. You will face surgery, and you're just going to do the best you can and get through life. They said there's no reason, there's nothing I could do to modify my lifestyle that would make any impact.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was surprising. Yeah. Your reaction was mine too. Even at 17, I was like, that doesn't really make any sense to me, but they're like, just keep eating, just do whatever, be a teenager, live your life. There's nothing you need to do differently. Just take this medication. So that was really the beginning of my journey. Of course, through college, I was a college kid. I listened to doctors. I took the meds. I got through school. I managed. Sometime in my 20s, though, that little voice started again, like, but really, is there really nothing else I could do? I mean, it didn't seem logical to me that a digestive disease, that mostly that's what was, I did have some joint swelling and other things, but mostly it was my digestive system. It didn't make sense that food didn't impact that. So I started to explore and experiment and found I would go to a bookstore and just happen across a book, like Macrobiotics was the first book that I found that said, like, the diet could impact these things. And I would experiment. And what would happen is that it would make enough of an impact that it was a clue to me to keep going. I didn't find at that point, like, the solution,
the magic bullet.
There wasn't that magic bullet, this has fixed everything, but it was enough of a change every time that I thought, okay, there's something to this, and I'm going to devote a lot of my time and energy to this pursuit and figuring this out. So that was sort of the thread in my life, is that wellness and health became really important to me. I career-wise was just following a traditional career path and moved through a lot of different things, as many of us do. But eventually what happened was yoga came in, and yoga was huge for me in the sense that it brought in the mind-body piece. And helped me understand the connection between my stress, my anxiety, my reaction to things, and how my body was physically feeling. So at that point, I ended up eventually opening a yoga studio. I left corporate work and I opened a yoga studio in Syracuse, New York. That grew over 8 years, and I had multiple locations and a big staff, and it became a big operation. Yeah, thanks. And it was an incredible journey. But what was happening also in that time was that I went back into like power mode in life. And was taking care of everybody else and not myself. So ultimately, I sold the yoga studios in 2019, went back into corporate life, which is what you're referring to. So I was working for remote tech companies, helping to establish culture, head of people. but I had had another massive flare at that point in 2019.
Yeah.
And that was the point, though, that I was like, okay,
Yeah.
the train has come off the tracks one too many times, and I don't want to live this way anymore. And I know there's solutions.
Yeah.
So I started to, for my own healing, study functional medicine. And this is running parallel with my corporate career then back in that life.
Yeah.
And because of course, why not? Because I was like, yes, let's, have this.
You were busy enough.
No, I wasn't. It's never enough. So I was like, sure, let's finish the MBA. Let's do a functional medicine degree. Let's be ahead of people, all the things.
Yeah.
But that's just, it is part of it's how I operate. But I've learned how to balance all that. So I healed everything, clinically healed. I had 5 autoimmune diseases at that point.
Yeah. Wow.
Because that's what happens. They sort of, the body's just in chaos, and they start giving you more labels for things, which is just big picture for like your body's in turmoil. Clinically healed and reversed all of them. And it was at that point that I realized I need to help other people.
Yeah. I love this. I love this. There's so much to unpack in there. I mean, one thing that jumped out when you first started saying about, I'm dating myself the 1990s, and you couldn't just Google. It's funny how we take that for granted. I mean, it is quite recent in history that we did not have access to the massive information that's out there now. Although it's also a double-edged sword. Now there's also a massive, so much false information that's available as well. But also that self-advocacy piece that it's one of the things that with my clients in particular, we do a lot of work on. And as women in particular, I think we tend to be less likely to self-advocate and to trust our intuition. But also I love that you didn't use these words, but following your passion and your purpose and recognizing this is what I'm passionate about. So how important do you think that is, Tiffany, for our listeners out there to really tap into their purpose and passion in life, rather than, as you say, following that traditional expected path as we so often do?
Yes. I mean, this is huge for me. I think it is so important. The couple things that, you brought up is one, that self-advocacy. And what I came to realize is that we just give our authority away. Ultimately, like, we need to take back the power. And that relates to this other piece that you're talking about, which is purpose and passion, because I think sometimes the narrative is so loud, like, follow these things the way that you're supposed to. This is the norm. And that's with career, that's with balancing, juggling everything. We're not supposed to say no and make these boundaries in our own bodies and our health. We just believe that as well, that, well, something's off, but they're saying it's not, so I guess it's not, and we just, we believe. So these are these stories, and it's, I think in terms of following your passion and purpose as it relates to a career, I'll be honest that I see both sides of the coin. So I'll give you an example, which is that yoga was a passion of mine. And that certainly drove my purpose to create the yoga studio, which was a beautiful thing and an incredible part of my life. There is a point, though, where, at least in that regard, because I wasn't balancing my life, and I let that consume me in service, and instead of allowing the passion to still feed back to myself.
That is a great observation. I want to just put a pin in that for a moment for our listeners there, because that was like, because it's true. We can still follow our purpose and our passion, but if we bring it, what's that saying? Wherever you go, there you are. If we bring that same old conditioning to that new passion, and I was guilty of that when I started Women on Purpose. I mean, as you say that, it's like, oh my gosh, that's such an epiphany. I brought that same old energy, that frenetic energy in running my own law firm, to Women on Purpose, which really, frankly, defeated the point. And it was one of my epiphanies in creating, I call it the art of feminine negotiation, about negotiating our best lives and reframing how we look at success. We have been so conditioned to define success based on a very competitive model in the entertainment we see, in the business world, in the professional world. So I'd love if you could share with us, how do you define success? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is again, same as you. I had this epiphany, right? And it's like I looked at the just sort of glorification of busyness and work
Yes.
harder and faster and no days off. And if you're not in constant motion and constant growth, then something's wrong. And just we sacrifice so much when we do that. So at this point, success to me means self-care is a priority. If self-care is not a priority in my life, something's off balance. That's not success to me.
Yeah.
Success ought to be where you're fulfilling a purpose, you feel motivated to do it. You're not at that point where it feels like I have to, I must.
Yeah.
There's days, right? Where there's
Yeah.
days and you just have to do the things. But if that's the feeling on repeat, something's
Yeah.
off there. So it's like, do I feel aligned with what I'm doing? And
Yeah.
does it align with my values?
Mm,
If you really take inventory of what your values are, and if you're creating your ideal world in terms of what I'm giving, but also what I'm receiving, how I feel every day, does it allow me this life I'm creating? What for?
yeah.
Is it allowing me the space and the freedom that I want? And so if you can say yes to all those things, you're making an impact, you're having some degree of growth, but I see it more as like a little more natural,
Yeah.
consistent steps in the right direction versus like power boating, have to get there, do
Yeah.
it all
It's
right
so
now. And then
true.
like there's no end and you're always setting a next goal point and a next goal point. And you're like, you don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
when you just said what for, wow, did that resonate with me? That is such a powerful question, right? Tapping into like we're always in this create and strive, that striver, driver, achiever. But if we're not sitting back to say, what for? Like what is the end goal here? I'd love what do you see as the biggest problem for leaders today, whether in the legal profession, the corporate world, or beyond?
yeah, I think it's this a lot of what we're talking about, which is that it's become normal to work to exhaustion. Busyness is glorified, productivity at all costs, which is not usually that productive, really. When you get to that point,
Yeah.
when you don't have enough quiet space, creative space, thinking space, it's not that productive.
Mhm.
So, what I see is that the demands are massive, and what's happening is an energy drain.
Yeah.
So, what I started to witness, particularly back in corporate America, in myself and people around me, and what I am passionate about helping my clients
Yeah.
reconnect with the balance of, is that there is a constant energy expenditure and there's not an appropriate amount of inputs to restore that energy.
Yeah.
And so there's this being pulled in every direction, being depleted because of the demands, and then there's not appropriate nourishment. And this is where I come in, which is that my message is never to anybody, because I do work with busy professionals and I want people, what I want for people is to have the radiance, the vibrancy, the
Yeah.
energy to get exactly what they want in life,
I love that.
and not have to say like, oh, well, I can't be like a big goal setter or
Yeah.
this big achiever if I want to have health. That's not true. But there does need to be an understanding of what the priorities are so that you are filling your tank the right way. Unfortunately, most people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
We have a disconnect of what those inputs need to be
Yeah.
to have the appropriate output. And that's where my passion lies, is right in that zone of like,
Yeah.
let's get you feeling amazing.
Yeah.
Let's get the inflammation down. Let's get the clarity there. Let's
Yeah.
create a lifestyle that allows for productivity and creativity and success and feeling great every day and
Yeah.
energized every day.
Absolutely.
And it is
Absolutely.
possible. It's possible, but it takes some adjustment in lifestyle.
Yeah. And I definitely want to unpack some of that. But I think a couple of things that are worth sort of, again, putting a pin in for our listeners there. And as you were describing that, oh my gosh, I remember being there like so clearly. And all of my peers, the same thing, within the legal community and beyond, frankly. And it really struck me, you know what? We wear this like a badge of honor. We take pride in it. It's like that scene from Jaws where they're showing each other their scars and try to one up each other, right? It's almost becomes a kind of martyrdom. So I'd love, before we sort of deal with some nuts and bolts, so often now, again, part of that wearing it as a badge of honor, when you say, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm surviving, as if that's somehow the bar. So I'd love for your thoughts on how you define sort of survival mode and burnout.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, burnout to me, I'll start with burnout and then I'll talk about survival mode, because I think like burnout is where you land.
Yeah.
You're in survival mode and then you land in burnout. So I'll talk about that first.
Yeah.
Burnout is essentially a physiological response where your body has been in survival mode and compensating for so long.
Yeah.
That then you actually, and it will compensate and it will allow you to do it. And then you hit a wall. And that's burnout. Burnout is when there becomes actually a metabolic chaos in the body. Systems have been pulling from one another, trying to compensate to keep you moving through your survival mode. And then you hit this point where no amount of like taking a day off and going on a vacation is going to just automatically fix that. Your hormones are at that point, like true burnout, your hormones are dysregulated, and in all honesty, all the systems of the body, when one system of the body is not regulated properly, they're all not regulated properly. It's truly just, the best way to describe it is metabolic chaos. Like there is just an imbalance going on in every system, and you're at a point of needing, like, you're not just band-aiding at that point, like you're in like crisis mode. So survival mode is what happens leading up to that, which is that you start to get a sense that you're not thriving.
Yeah.
And we've all been there, right? You wake up, you're exhausted and you're like, okay, I'm kind of tired, but that's okay. I'm going to get that cup of coffee. I'm going to do the things. And then your adrenaline kicks in, right? It's cortisol, really. Your cortisol kicks in. It's a painkiller. It's an anti-inflammatory. It will keep you going. And so you're just survival mode is when you start to really rely on Band-Aids. To get you through. So you're reaching for that extra caffeine. You're eating things on the go. You're working out. This was for me survival mode, like work out to get it in. It's just like crush yourself, because I only have these 45 minutes where I'm going to be able to devote to myself. So I'm going to jam it all in as intensely as possible, because the rest of the day for 12 hours, I'm going to be at a computer. Those are all survival mode, where you're just like, oh, right, I'm just getting by from day to day. I think you start to notice the creativity goes down, the inspiration goes down, the fatigue goes up. But you're convincing yourself it's fine, because you know what? Sadly, you're looking around and everyone's in the same spot. And it's back to that badge of honor. Well, how are you? I'm surviving. How are you? I'm surviving. Great. We're both surviving. Isn't this wonderful?
And I want to again really circle back for our listeners on that, because I think, obviously this podcast, we talk about negotiation and the art of negotiation often, and how to practice with more purpose. And we think we are negotiating our best lives by staying on that hamster wheel, and we're operating on pure adrenaline overload half the time, when we're actually suffering from sort of chronic fatigue, which does not allow us to negotiate our best lives, and actually doesn't allow us to negotiate best outcomes in our businesses. So what are some of those day-to-day habits that we're all guilty of that contribute to that chronic fatigue and brain fog?
Yes. So the biggest contributors, I'm going to bookend it. It happens in the morning and it happens at night. And these are the two that are setting us up for chronic fatigue the most. So in the morning, the habits are to roll out of bed and look at your phone, or before you've even gotten out of bed. The phone goes in the hand and it's in the face. And you are immediately, the two things that you're doing is you're engaging in artificial blue light, which is immediately spiking your cortisol. And you're engaging in the chaos of the day, or whatever the phone is bringing the entire world in to you, right? This little device, there's no boundaries, and it's bringing everything. And then your mind starts to immediately dive into that problem solving mode, planning mode, and you've not created enough space for yourself. So that is one. Those are the habits that morning. And then in addition to that, I'm just going to speak most generally what I, when clients come to me, what their daily habits have been: looking at the phone, then you get up, lights are on full blast. Maybe you're crushing yourself through a workout. You've had a black cup of coffee. You, at best, if you've eaten, you've taken something like grab and go, and then you're out the door to the gym or to work. And basically you've rolled out of bed and just jacked up your cortisol. And then there you go for the day. That leads to afternoon bad habits, but it starts in the morning, so then you're reaching for caffeine or, like that kind of stuff. But the morning is what sets it up. Similar in the evening is that there's not any space in those devices. And so again, we have a blue light problem at night, which I can't stress this enough. The blue light from our devices. So there's blue light in the middle of the day, and that's an appropriate time for your body to know, oh, it's the middle of the day. I need to be active. Cortisol needs to be pumping. I have work to do. When that continues at night, your body is getting the same signal. It doesn't know that it's not the middle of the day because you're giving it that information from devices. So we're on devices until sometimes, right? Roll into bed, put the device down. So we're on the devices, which again is the blue light and the information. So that's the biggest piece, is these opportunities for making space to set the tone of the day properly, nourish yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, nourish yourself in the evening in the same ways. Those changes, changing your evening and your morning routines, would be a massive impact for people.
And so simple.
Then how it is so simple.
Like so simple. Other than the conditioning, because we are, so even look at our kids, I worry the next generation even worse. Like those phones are permanently attached to them. Like for a long time ago, I stopped. So that phone is not in my bedroom. It is not in my room at night. It's not in the room in the morning. And it's not until I've already gotten up and taken care of stuff that I even see it. Now, you had mentioned Band-Aids, and I was interested in that because I know, a lot of practitioners even, frankly, seem to really use those Band-Aids to cover the symptoms, if you will, rather than address the root causes. So what approach do you recommend? Or is that what you were just talking about, that sort of bookend approach?
Yeah, I mean, when I work with clients, I work really individually because I am looking at root cause for each individual, which is very different overall. I will say, it's each person's root cause is different than the others. They could be showing up as the same symptoms, but the root cause could be different. But in terms of Band-Aids, unfortunately, what happens is, you're right, whether it's Western medicine or, quite honestly, even in my world, in holistic alternative care, supplements have become the new, like, what prescription meds were. Like, oh, you're feeling fatigued, like, here's some herbal stuff that's going to, like, boost your brain and get you through the day, versus, like, if you go to a doctor, they're going to say, they're going to give you a prescription, a pill. But that's happening as well. And so back to your comment about the amount of information, this is unfortunately, like, this is part of the problem, is that you can Google, like, what's a natural remedy for fatigue, and you're going to get 50 million companies trying to sell you their supplements and tell you, like, this will fix it. But the supplement, the lack of, I'm just going to say, like, let's say, I don't know, ginkgo biloba, that's something that, people know, that you're not fatigued because you have less of that in your body. The fatigue is coming from metabolic level, from the function of the mitochondria. And so my solution, the way that I work with people, is I want to get to that base, to that root, because I don't want people, it's fine to use a supplement or something like that therapeutically for a specific purpose, for a specific period of time, because sometimes we just need to feel better, right? Like, you need to feel better enough to keep going and keep healing. But the work that I'm trying to do with people and teach people is, how do we change this at a fundamental foundational level and build the foundation solidly, so that you're not reliant on Band-Aids to get you through the day. You, ideally, your body, when supported properly, has the right minerals, you've balanced your circadian rhythm, you've set your life up that way. Like, it's remarkable at adapting and adjusting and giving you the resilience for stress, so that when those stressors happen, you're like, oh, I've got this. Your body responds, and then it goes back into being calm, into parasympathetic. One of the things I wanted to mention, actually, that in terms of that survival mode is actually what that really is the sympathetic nervous system. You know, we know that the fight and flight,
Yeah.
it gets turned on and it's just stuck in the
Yes.
opposition. That's actually is what happens.
Yes.
There's no, and it's
in there.
yeah, right. The sympathetic system should kick in. It's amazing. But then the parasympathetic should kick into balance. And that's the piece not happening. Okay. And that goes back to the morning and night. So, you know, I'm always looking for, I look at people's lifestyles. We do a lot of testing and stuff too, but I'm like a detective. I'm looking at all the clues and I'm like, oh, here are the hidden stressors that you probably don't even realize. Yeah. Let's fix these and let your body start to repair itself.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are some quick wins, if I can call it that, that our listeners can at least try on to kickstart to be able to negotiate better lives?
Yes. Okay. Quick win. As your habit, like embracing your habit, no phone in the bedroom. Yeah. I'm a fan of actually, you can create a shortcut on your phone. You can Google it to find it, but you can, with the 3 clicks on the side, you can program it to turn red. So in the evening, what I do is I turn it red. I put it away in another room. And then in the morning, it's red until I've decided that like that blue light can come in. But keeping it out of your room, turning your Wi-Fi off at night, and then viewing the sunrise with your naked eyes in the morning. That is, if people could just embrace that one habit without glasses, without, and it doesn't matter the weather. It doesn't matter if it's cloudy. It doesn't matter if you can see a glorious sunrise or not. There's colors, there's information and colors in that your eyes are taking in. Yeah. It is such an important cue for your body. I love that. And it can be such a sacred time. Like it's a beautiful way to start the day, to set gratitude, to set intention. It can be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Be outside, even if it's cold, bundle up. Do that. So those are quick wins. And then the other one I would say is ensuring that you're getting electrolytes and minerals through the day. Taking something, I take one called Element, LMNT. But getting in, particularly women need so much more magnesium than we're getting. Yeah. Magnesium is a stress mineral. It will get depleted the fastest when you're stressed. So it's really important on a daily basis to be getting magnesium in. So I would say sunrise without any devices. Yeah. And getting more electrolytes and minerals in the day. Those are quick wins that would make a big impact. I love that. Thank you. The sunrise, that's again, so simple, right? Just to be able to do that. And free. On so many levels, that makes sense. Now, I often say that negotiating our mindset is probably our first and most important negotiation. Do you have any insights on how to negotiate our mindset so we can show up more powerfully? Mindset's my favorite thing to talk about. Here are the things I would say is 1, patience and grace with yourself, which is that, you know, I think sometimes we say we want to have a positive mindset, right? And then not positive thoughts come in, or there's a day where that's right. And then we're like, oh, we failed. We're not good at mindset. That's for other people who can sit and meditate. And no, it's not, you know, it's like, what positive steps can I take consistently every day to move in that direction? And so I think allowing moments of just quiet is actually, I personally find when you can allow yourself some quiet and just to breathe, that is profound for shifting mindset. So anytime you're noticing if your mindset's not in a place that is serving you, that's making you feel better, you're stuck in a loop, whatever you're doing, just stop, breathe. Breathing is so simple, again, free, so simple, so free. Yeah. And it's like, if the mind is wandering, fine, observe it. We don't have to control it. We don't have to shut it off. We just have to say like, oh, that's interesting. You know, it's interesting that that's happening, and just give yourself some compassion. Like, I think that's the biggest step with mindset is like compassion with ourselves, but not giving up. It's like, okay, well, you know, I guess I take some more breaths and try again tomorrow because I'm not doing the best today, but that's okay. I'm compassionate with myself. I'm trying to do a lot of things, I think that's a good starting place.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. And again, for our listeners, something I invite you to really be intentional about going for it. Find that quiet space. I mean, in a society where the next iteration of technology they're already developing right now are those stupid contact lenses people put in that have little mini computers in our like it terrifies me, right? Like allow ourselves this space to breathe and to think and to simply be. What's one of the most surprising things or shocking or whatever that you discovered while researching for your sort of methodology and your current practices?
It actually has to do with what I've been talking about with the sun and circadian health, because it's actually the least talked about thing. And I've come to understand is the most profound, which is that we are mammals, we're biological creatures, and we live in a way where we've lost reverence for nature and our connection to nature. And when I started to understand the power, so, for so many years, it was like nutrition and supplements, and I was biohacking my way through everything. And like exercise is important, right? So I put like a walking treadmill under my desk. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep working and walking. And I'm like, obviously so healthy. And it was like, oh, but actually I just need to go outside and go for a walk. And so that was the biggest surprising piece to me, is when I started to study that more, mitochondrial health, circadian health, the connection of the sun. Back to what I was saying, those inputs, our energy is getting drained one way, but we actually don't know the right way to charge the battery, which is you cannot do it without nature. You need the proper kind of water, which many of us aren't drinking. You need connection to elements. You need grounding. You need the earth's magnetic fields, and you need sunshine and fresh air. And it's more than just like, oh, that feels nice. It's like your body literally can't function without those inputs. And that was mind-blowing to me, because all anybody had told me was about initially nutrition and supplements and water filters and air filters and red lights, and I had all the devices, and I was missing this piece, this like beautiful sunshine piece, and being outside and touching a tree and putting my bare feet in the grass. Like that's fundamental. And it's like we just skip over the fundamentals.
Oh, and I'm so glad that you are really sort of hitting on that, the importance of nature, because I feel like we're forgetting that. And it's the most obvious thing and it really striking a chord with me. We just came back from a trip to the Amazon, and Tiffany, I cannot believe the devastation that we are causing there and not stopping, right? I forget what percentage of the world's oxygen, frankly, comes from the Amazon. There are, access to things we have nowhere else in the world. And we're still doing the slash and burn policies and devastating the environment. I mean, it was still a beautiful trip. I'm so glad we went, but wake up. Wake up, people.
We can't survive without nature. We have lost our reverence for it.
Reverence. I love that word. And that's why I really resonate. And for our listeners there, if you're thinking this is woo-woo, just for 1 week, I challenge you to do those simple wins that Tiffany talked about. Go out and embrace a sunrise, and depending on where you live. For us, we've got snow on the ground here already, but you know what? Just bundle up and go out and just embrace those moments. It's beautiful. And today, I could talk to you forever. This has been lovely. I love your philosophy. And I normally end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? Doesn't have to even be on this topic, just one of those aha moments that changes how you think or show up.
The biggest mindset shift for me had to do with a book that I read called The Four Agreements. And the one that made the biggest impact and mindset shift for me was not to take anything personally. And, it was so profound to me that, one, it's like the world doesn't revolve around you. And it gets your ego out of the way. You're like, I'm not that important. And everything somebody says and does is not about me. It was profound because it allows you not to react to things so emotionally, and it's really powerful. So that That is what came to mind initially for me when you
Oh,
asked that
that's
question.
such great advice. And I love that you mentioned ego as well. And one of the things I call it one of the 7 deadly sins of negotiation is we bring ego. And certainly in my legal career, as you know, I mean, just ego. Oh my gosh, so much ego. We did take everything personally. We always made it about us, right? And in the
Yeah.
corporate world as well. So where can people learn more about you, Tiffany?
My website's the best place. It's my first and last name, tiffanycagwin.com. That's Cagwin. So tiffanycagwin.com. It tells you all about me, my story, how I work with, people in my program. People can book a consultation call with me, which is complimentary. I'm leading a yoga retreat to Costa Rica in April. So
Wonderful.
under my services tab, you could find information about that as well. But, all the socials around there, the website's really just the best landing pad, and I encourage people to reach out to me. Just book a call. It connects right to my calendar. It's very easy. And
Yeah.
I'm always happy to talk to people and just see what's going on. Can I help? And if I can't, or if I don't think that I'm the right person, I am always happy to steer people in the right direction as well, because I just want people to thrive and heal and,
Love it.
reconnect with
So
themselves.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And for our listeners out there, we'll make sure to put that website in the show notes as well. And Tiffany, flip me your the link to the direct for people who want to book a complimentary consultation with you as well. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes too, so they can get that direct access to you while they're thinking about it. So
Great.
loads and loads of value. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. It's been a lovely discussion and regrounded me as well. So thank you for that.
Good. Thank you so much. This has been so great, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, I have no doubt that you got a lot of value from this episode. I know I did. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. And also give the gift of sharing. Make sure you share this episode with other people in your life. Let's face it, most of us all are suffering from that sort of living in that survival mode and not taking the time for that self-care. And Tiffany's really shared some very simple initial shifts for you to be able to make a profound change in your life. So share that gift with others that you can think of. And before we sign off today, I just wanted to share some ways that we can work together if you're looking to uplevel your negotiation skills. I've got everything from online to group to my signature mastermind and VIP experiences to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life so that you can negotiate your best life. And check out our website at artoffemininegotiation.com if that sounds interesting to you. And also make sure to grab a copy of my Practicing with Purpose book. That is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose and find better ways to practice law so that you can rekindle your passion and make a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time, take care.